Hello. Today we're going to be talking about Galileo, or Georgia Library Learning Online. Galileo is a collection of databases that allows you to access ebooks, journal articles, video recordings, pictures, and a lot of other subscription-based resources. Now, in order to get to Galileo, we're first going to want to go to the library website. You do that from the ABAC homepage by going to Academics, then clicking on Library. And from here, we're going to click on the Galileo link. Now, you can also access Galileo through the GilFind catalog or through a link in your Centrify or GeorgiaView accounts. Now, I'm going to call out here, if you're accessing Galileo off campus, you will probably need to use a password. That password this semester is multiple, but you can access the password on your GilFind account or by contacting a librarian, and that password does change every semester. So there's a couple of different options for using Galileo. You can use the Browse by Subject tab here to pull up a list of topics. For example, we can look at literature, language, and literary criticism here. And from there, select language. And I'm going to see a list of databases that Galileo is suggesting for this topic. We can also browse by type if we need a particular type of resource. For example, we can do archives and primary sources or books and ebooks. This can be very helpful if you're required to use specific source types, for example, primary source documents. We also have a database A to Z list. This can be useful if you want to do a keyword search for specific databases or if you already know the name of a useful database. And finally, we also have a journals A to Z searcher here. This will actually link you back into the GilFind catalog, so keep that in mind when you use that, but it will link right back into Galileo when you find a useful result. However, when we're first starting off with research, you probably want to start with a Discover search just for the terms you're looking for. For example, today we'll just use Robert Frost. Now, I've gotten over 200,000 results for Robert Frost. That's a lot. That's too many for us to really dig through. So instead of just looking through all of our results here, I'm going to start by adding a few limits. Now, limits allow you to just narrow down what's showing up in your search results. So, for example, I could say I only want to see results that are full text, which means anything that I can actually access the full text of the article in Galileo. There are some articles we might have that we don't have everything available online, and I'm going to show you a little later how you can actually get your hands on those. But for now, we'll just use this full text limit, which did not cut us down by much, which means most of Robert Frost's material in Galileo is full text. We also have a scholarly peer-reviewed journals limit. A scholarly peer-reviewed journal article is one that's been submitted to and accepted by an academic journal and has had other scholars in that field look at it and say it's, for lack of a better term, good research. Now, we can use this limit, or if you want to include other resource types, we can also use this limit by type option right here to select which ones we want to use. Today I'm just going to use the scholarly peer-reviewed journals limit, but keep in mind that when you use that, you are cutting out anything that's not an academic journal. So now we're down to 77,000, which is a smaller number, but still far too large to use. So the next thing we want to look at is our publication date. Publication date can be an incredibly important limit because the newer an article is, which is generally referred to as the currency of the article, the more credible it's likely to be. So we're going to take a look at, say, the last 10 years. Slide this bar over to 2009. Went too far. We can also click into this box here and set it to the date we want. Then hit enter, and that's going to do our limit again. So now we're down to about 41,000 results as opposed to the over 200,000 we had before. That is a lot still, and we have one more tool that I want to encourage you to look at when you're trying to limit down your results, and that's if we scroll down here to this subject limit, and then we pull up this show more. This allows us to narrow down by topics that have shown up in my search results. I'm going to close this again for a second. You can see underneath each of these there are subject lists. This is how Galileo is cataloging articles. So from here, I can check off things that I think I want. Like I want to talk about Robert Frost poetry. I may want to look at scroll back up. I saw one that I liked. Let's say we also want to see if there's much about Robert Frost in conjunction with agriculture. So we're going to update, and that's going to look through our results and pull out items that have these two terms associated. So now we're down to 826, which is a much more usable number. It's still a lot, but you're not going to actually read through all 826 articles. You're going to give yourself a chance to look at the titles, obviously, and also look at the subjects. And once we find one that we think is going to be useful, we're going to open it up. We're just going to use this Frost Robinson and the Judgment of Posterity for today. And I'm going to encourage you to also take a look at your abstract. This is going to give you the ability to see a summary of the article that kind of goes over what kind of research they've done. So once I've decided this is an article I want to use, I can click on whatever full text is available. Galileo presents full text either as a PDF or HTML. Sometimes you get both. I would encourage you, when possible, to use the PDF just because that allows you to see the original printing or the original publication status of the article. HTML is just going to give you a copy of the text. One other advantage of HTML over PDF is a lot of the time these page numbers do not show up in the HTML. So we're going to hop back to the articles page here. And I want to show you a few tools you have over here on the right-hand side to hold on to these articles. We can extract articles into a Google Drive. So if you have a Google account and you want to use your drive, you can extract there. There's also a folder tool in Galileo. I want to caution you about using this, though, because if you're not logged into Galileo when you use it, it will erase itself anytime you leave because Galileo doesn't know who to associate it with. And when I say logged in, I don't mean using the semester's password to use our version of Galileo. I mean, you need to use this sign-in link up here. When we click on this, we're going to have the option to sign in with a Google account or create a new account down here. This is already paid for by your student fees. You don't have to pay anything extra for it, but you do need to sign up for it. You don't have to use ABAC credentials, but I would suggest you do. Once you've logged in, you'll be able to store items in the folder and basically keep a list of articles, sort of like our search results screen. Naturally, we can also print, email, and save articles. Real quick on the email, I mentioned earlier I would tell you how to get an article that we don't have in Galileo. All you're going to need to do there is open up this email tool. Either change this email from to your stallions.abac email address or include your name and email in the subjects or comments, and then email it to the library at baldwinlibrary@abac.edu. And once we receive this email, it's going to let us know you need the article, and we're going to reach out to see if we can't get an interlibrary loan of it. It can take a few days for us to get these articles, but since everything's digital, it's much quicker than having to wait for it to be physically mailed to us. So as long as you give us a few days lead time, we should be able to get what you need. You can save to a hard drive, flash drive, or cloud computing. So if you use iCloud or Dropbox, you can also save into those. We do provide citations in Galileo. There are many different formats in here, including the major ones like APA, Chicago, and MLA. I would encourage you to pay attention to your citations. Don't assume it's going to be exactly correct, but they should be accurate. We also have the option to export if you're using a citation management software. You can create notes on your articles, though again, these will disappear if you're not logged into Galileo. And finally, we have a permalink option. If you're going to want to keep your links, you want to make sure you're using the permalink option here, because the link at the top of the screen, which I know you can't see in this recording, it does change pretty much daily. So if you want to be able to make sure you're coming back to the same article, make sure you're using the permalink. This concludes our brief introduction on Galileo. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to a librarian for assistance. Thank you.